New Testament, the Message Bible, in the New Testament, the book of James. And we're going to the book of James in the Message Bible to make it more contemporary for today's listeners. And we pray that we all receive a word from God today. Amen. James chapter 1, verse 19. James chapter 1, verse 19, from the Message Bible, it says, "Post this at all intersections, dear friend. Lead with your ears, follow up with your tongue, and let anger straggle along in the rear." You may be seated. For just a few minutes, I'd like to talk about, we need to talk. We need to talk. Today it will be more of a teaching. Some people ask me, can I preach without yelling? So I'm going to try to do that today. All right, the late Dr. Adrian Rogers says you have to know the attributes or the characteristics of the person you're talking to or the people you're dealing with. He says because if you do not know that, it can make communication very difficult. Two people can see the same thing. Two people can be involved in the same conversation, yet leave that event with two totally different understandings. And so what he lists 6 characteristics or attributes that we ought to be aware of when we're dealing with people. Number one, because he says these things can make communication difficult if you're not aware of that person's characteristics or how they understand certain things. He says, number one, you have a person that is called judgmental or attitudinal. This is the type of person that always blames somebody else. They never see wrong in themselves, but they always condemn somebody else. They use words like this: "It's always your fault. You don't never get it right. You don't never understand." Y'all just look at me, don't look at to your left or right. They always say, "You never do it right. You should be able to do that better by now." It's hard communicating with people with attitudes because they never see any wrong in themselves. They only can see the wrong in somebody else. They never take responsibility. Even when they're wrong, they blame somebody else. Second is the professor. The professor always acts superior. Everything has to go the way the professor says it needs to go. The professor is the only one that can give clear, concise instructions. And if you do something that's not up to the professor's standard, you're going to know, because he or she will always correct you because you're not doing it up to the professor's standard. Come on. The professor always points out what you did wrong and how they are really the smartest one in the room. Or if you don't do it according to the way the professor thinks you should do it, then the professor always replies, "You think you're smarter than me." Number 3, the psychologist. This person always tells the other person what they need to do and why they need to do it. They're always analyzing this person or the situation motives. And you do realize you can't analyze nobody's motives. Only God knows somebody's heart. But how often have you said, "I know why they did it"? Well, in reality, you're just lying because you don't really know why anybody did anything. Motives, and they can tell you as if they're God. Why you said what you said, what was behind why you said it. They tell you as though they created you and they know more about you than you know about yourself. They read more into what they felt than what you felt. It's all about them. That's the psychologist. But number 4 is the historian. This person always brings up the past. You know, ain't nobody here like that. This person always correcting somebody else with the history. This is the way we've always done it. Yep. And if you go from A to C, they're going to tell you missed B. Because they're used to history. They're used to things being like they've always been. They don't want anything to change. The historian will always bring up past matters, even if you ain't doing that no more. They're good for bringing up what happened in the past. But number 5 is the dictator. This person is the one who demands. They're always demanding. They're always telling you what to do and how to do it. They say stuff like this: "You're going to do it the way I told you to do it, or you'll do it again until you do it like I told you to do it." They'll tell you better not do it like that. You better not wear that to church. You better not come here looking like that. The dictator will take control of the conversation. And with a dictator, there's really no use in you talking because they're not listening to anything you have to say. Next is the comparer. This person is always comparing. They say things like, my friends wouldn't treat me like that. Or didn't you see such and such on social media, how they treated them? Then why don't you treat me like this? They're always comparing you with somebody else. They're comparing you the way you sing or the way you usher or the way you do certain things. They always compare you to somebody else. And some husbands would say, I wish you cooked biscuits like my mama. And if you married to my wife, she would say, I wish you brought home the bacon like my dad. Man, y'all ain't giving that enough for you. Number 7 is the one out the way, and this is the one that I call the conversationalist finisher. This is the person who finishes your sentence. They already know what you're going to say before it comes out of your mouth. They don't mind butting in. Even though you may be talking to somebody, they want to butt in on the conversation. Have you ever seen somebody, you talking to somebody, and somebody just see their way in your conversation? Yeah, conversational finisher. You and I have to know who we're talking to. We have to realize that some people are so sensitive that you have to walk on eggshells when you're dealing with them. Some people you have to be hard with. Some people you have to talk and talk slow and repeat yourself over and over again just to be sure they understand. Those are 6 or 7 things we need to be aware of when we are communicating with other people. And I believe James understood it like that. That's why James, the brother of Jesus, said that he knows communication can be difficult. And number 1, he says in verse 19, according to the Message Bible, he says you need to lead with your ears. You see, most of us think communication is only with our mouths. But James suggests that when you get ready to have communication, what's most important is your ears. He says, before you talk, there's something that you need to be aware of. Before any words come out of your mouth, you need to be sure you've heard what's going on. Have you ever been in a situation where people get up talking about something and you wonder what are they talking about or where that came from because that ain't what we was talking about? Or you wonder why certain people speak out of time, out of turn, and it's because they're not listening. Or let me tell you, they didn't hear what the instruction was. A lot of times we listen, but we never hear. So they end up opening their mouth without really hearing what they should be talking about. So James says that I believe, James says, God gave us 2 ears and 1 mouth so that we can listen more than we talk. Amen. Have you ever noticed some people just talk all the time? James says God gave you 2 ears for you to talk twice as much. 2 ears so you can listen twice as much as you talk. Which means we ought to be hearing people a lot more than when we are talking. And so I came up with this idea. Some of us need to invest in Sherman toilet teacher for the mouth because our mouth is always running. Because there's always something that we've got to talk about. We've always got a testimony to share. Don't realize the difference between a testimony and a testimony. And so James says you need to realize when it's time to talk. Proverbs 15 and 28 says, the heart of the righteous studieth to answer, but the mouth of the wicked poured out evil things. Solomon is saying, before you say something, make sure you respond from an authentic heart. Don't come to church already with your mind made up, I'm going to say something, because maybe it's not time for you to say what you need to say. So he says, be sure before you say anything that you took it to God, and God has told you this is the place and the time to say such a thing. Proverbs 16:23 says, be thoughtful before you respond. Proverbs 18:13 says, communication ain't just about somebody talking, it's also about responding to the message that was given. Here's what I'm saying. There's been time in my BC days before Christ, and don't tell nobody that I still do it every now and then. I would go off on you because I thought I heard you say something. Anybody in here that you thought you heard somebody say something and you go off on them, only later to realize that ain't really what they said? Yes, sir. Or you go off on people on what you thought they said or what you thought they meant? Proverbs said what you need to do. He says you need to listen and take it to heart to be sure you understand the context in which they said it. Because if you don't, that can get you and I in a whole lot of trouble. Has anybody ever called and had some issues going on because there was a misunderstanding in the way things were presented or the way you took things? And what it is, we're so prideful, we won't go back and say we misunderstood it. So he says what we need to do, he said, we need to be sure we understand what is being said. You notice how lately at the drive-thru restaurants, they got these screens out there? And then when you make an order, it's not for you to call an order in just so they can understand you. They want to be sure that what you ordered appears on the screen. Because they want you to know what you see. See what God is saying, before you open your mouth, you ought to know what you're going to say. And so they put those screens up there to verify what they heard is what you say. How much simpler and how much peaceful would life be in the church if we were sure we understood what somebody said before we responded with the wrong thing, and before you know it, we're on the telephone talking to everybody about what you said. So before I respond, I need to make sure I understood what the person meant. One of the major issues nowadays is emails, text messages. The church secretary, just a couple of weeks ago, she sent me a text and it was all caps. For me, that meant she was yelling. So before I responded back, I had to gain my composure. You see, if we're not careful, we'll infer what we think on somebody else. That probably was not her intent. I hope and pray it wasn't. I inferred that she was yelling at me. She wasn't yelling at me, she just didn't realize the cap locks was on. You and I have to be sure we don't infer what we think on somebody else. And that's easy to do because a lot of times we'll say what I would do if I was in their shoes. But you ain't in their shoes, honey. And so you can't infer what you would do because that's the way you would handle a situation. And then what happened? When we receive a message wrong, we become thumb bullies. We get on there and can't text fast enough. Or we do what I call Facebook banging. We start blasting folks on Facebook. And here's the question. My wife's Super Bowl was going on. No, right before Super Bowl, playoffs was going on. And she said, okay, today we can't talk. We can't have cell phones at the table. Yeah, honey, that sounds good. No, any of this kind of stuff. You know, that was the longest 30 minutes I've ever spent. And I looked for my oldest son because he's always hard-headed. So I just knew he was going to have his on. Nobody had their cell phones. When was the last time we had a conversation without social media being present? Right. You can't even talk to folks now without them looking down at their phone. You can't even come to church without preachers sitting there looking at the ball game. I mean, social media, cell phones have just ruined communication, even in the church. Here's my question. How many phone numbers do you know? By heart? You know one of them? You know a lot of them? Yeah. Okay, good. We got a few people still know. I don't know any. I just learned my wife's phone number. I become so used to social media that I don't know no phone number. That's all part of communication. Because communication has dumbed us down to where only thing we do is OMG, LOL, TTYL, ABCD, EFG. Y'all get where I'm going? That's the only thing we know now. We was in the bank the other day, the lady told this man to sign his name. He said, I don't know, we just drive like that. She said, sign his name. He said, I don't know how to do that. I told you I don't line the pulpit. He did. Social media has crippled us, and we don't really know how to communicate anymore. So James says, first of all, listen, but number two, he says your words should be the effect. He says your words should be the effect. There in verse 19, he says, leave with your ears, follow up with your tongue. He says, my words are not the cause, my words should be the effect. He says, I don't just use words just because I like to talk. If I use my words, they ought to be an effect of something. That means my words will always have meaning and purpose. Have you ever talked to somebody and their words really don't mean anything, but they just talk? Just talking just to be talking. Here's the question, are your words the cause or the effect of the conversation? Why are you talking so much? What's the purpose of what you are saying? I have some friends who I talk to all the time, and I rarely hear what they're saying, but I do have some other friends who I don't talk to very much, but I always hear what they're saying. And so sometimes I can be looking you straight in the face. If you just talking, I ain't listening to you. Your words ought to have some meaning. They ought to have a purpose. Whenever you communicate with somebody, don't talk just to be talking. Have a point behind what you're talking about. Our words ought to be the root or the fruit of everything that we are saying. Then he says in verse 19, he says, and let anger stagger along in the rear. He says you don't just start with your words. He says you follow up with your words. Before I say something, I need to ask the question, why am I saying what I'm saying? What am I saying? Is it following up to something that has already been said? And if it don't, you need to realize and know when to tune certain things out. Here's what I'm saying. Some stuff don't deserve your time or your response. Some words, some conversations that come to you really don't deserve your time or your response. Just because somebody says something to you that you don't like, don't mean you have to say something back to them. Y'all got awfully quiet in here. Because I know how we are. Somebody say something to me, I'm going to let them know they said it and tell them how I feel about it. But James said, just because somebody says something ignorant to you, don't mean you got to say something back to them. Somebody attack you don't mean you have to attack them back. You see, I'm at a stage in my life where my time is too valuable. I don't have time to dignify ignorance anymore. I'm in my third trimester, meaning I ain't got much longer here. I got less time in front of me than I do behind me, so I ain't got time to get caught up in a whole bunch of childish games anymore. If that's what you coming at me with, you can say all you want to say, and I know how to turn my back and walk away. Some things I value my time too much than to get involved with something that's crazy, something that's childish, something that should not even be a part of your conversation, something that shouldn't be a part of the church family. So sometimes you have to be the bigger person and say, I ain't even got to respond to something I still believe that God will still handle after a while. So something you just have to learn to turn around and leave it where it's at. You have to send it back to the very pits of hell. You ain't got to respond to everything that come out. You ain't got to deal with people who ain't never built them, but always trying to tear down what God has built in your life. And you do know you will always run across some people who ain't never constructed anything, but as soon as God starts building some of your house, they want to tear it down. You don't have to deal with folks like that. Sometimes when you see folks like that, you just need to keep on going about your business. But don't you let somebody that's trying to tear down what God built in your life. You ain't got to spend time with folks like that. Don't you know who you are? Don't you know who you are? Don't you know you're a child of the King? And because you're God's child, God said, I'll fight your battles for you. Now we waste too much time fighting arguing with folks who ain't gonna do nothing for us, no way but cause hell in our life. Don't you know when God is on your side? I wasn't gonna holler today. Here's what I learned. Don't argue with a fool. Because people walking by can't tell who the real fool is. Proverbs 16:32 says, if you can rule your spirit, you are stronger than the one who can take a city down. Sometimes the hardest thing to do is to control your tongue. Thirdly, let your anger be at the very end. He said, let anger straggle at the end. Sometimes we bring in anger, and that's the truth. But Paul said it like this. He said, Be angry and sin not. So don't start with your anger. That should be a last resort. Proverbs 15:1 says, when you see a person talking loud, sometimes the best thing to do is talk low. You see, it's hard. And I know this from almost 32 years of experience. It's hard arguing by yourself. Sometimes a soft answer can fix the problem. You see, when you get into your feelings, it's hard. It's dangerous to bring a gasoline truck to fight a fire. When you get in your feelings, that's the last thing you need to do, is try to fight a fire when you know you're upset. Proverbs 16:1 says, before you respond from your mouth, he says, run your words through your heart. And if your heart is pure and right with God, then your words from your heart will be from God. How many times when we get upset do we run our words through our heart? Tell the truth, shame the devil. How many times do we do that? God, are you okay with what's getting ready to come out of my mouth? See, that there's two places we can speak from. We can speak from our emotions, or we can speak from a pure heart. There are one or two things that would come out of my heart. Either it would be divine and honor God, or it would be demonic and honor the devil. There's no in between. Fourthly and finally, lose all your evil emotions. Lose all your evil emotions. He says, so throw off spoiled virtues and cancerous evil in the garbage. Well, he said, you will never gain divine righteousness from human anger. Even if you're right, it won't produce God's righteousness. Some stuff that we got in our heads, we need to throw it in the garbage. Back in the day when I came up and stayed with my Uncle Ham for a minute, he's married to my Aunt May, and then he had about a 12-pack too many. And Aunt May was talking to him about it, and he was so upset. My Aunt May wasn't very big, but he was so upset that he picked her up. He took her outside, and I'm about 7, 8 years old, and I'm looking like, what is he finna do with my Aunt May? Well, in the back in those days, we had to burn garbage in the backyard. Y'all don't know about that. Y'all always had trash men. But we had a hole in the backyard where we burnt the trash. And so what he did, he picked Aunt May up and started shaking her. So when he came back in the house, he turned her upside down too. Started shaking her. He came back, I said, oh, what'd you do that for? He said, she got so much mess in her head, I'm trying to shake something. The doors of the church were